can we attack what Steve brought up in our workshop the other night, that project on all south side between Corey and Elder Court?
I think we've got some engineering to do on that first,
Right,
right?
that's
Well,
what I am
yeah.
pursuing.
I thought it was pretty much just a locate thing. You've got to do some engineering?
That project, yes, we are finishing up the little bits and pieces. Spoke with Morris last Wednesday on that.
And the other thing that, just as an aside, this issue with the mowing of the right-of-way, we need to use some common sense on that. When we're mowing and weeding around people's mailboxes and everything, that's going a little bit too far in my opinion. Just, I thought we were going to mow the intersections and the bus stops and then get the places that were just being neglected, and instead of all of this manpower being expended, in some cases unnecessarily.
Chief?
Good evening, everybody. We'll make it short. As of today, we're at 480 calls. We also received our air pack grant, which gives us 5 air packs, 5 bottles, tanks, and masks, which came up to $32,000. And we did have a structure fire this weekend, and that's about it. Any other questions? I want to keep it short.
$32,000 was a grant.
That's a grant for free. That's
We didn't have to spend it.
We can pay down for that. So we're at $32,000 already in grants received.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll never get it.
Yeah, Christmas tree lighting was held last Wednesday, December 5th, 2018 at 6 p.m. and was a great success. The turnout was amazing of residents from all over the town. They enjoyed posing with Santa and with the new fire truck. The State Department of Economic Opportunity has completed their review of the comprehensive plan amendment that the town sent in. They had one objection to the language in the coastal management element and recommended the town add redevelopment regulations in the flood-prone areas to the goals, objectives, and policies in the comp plan. The town's planner has begun working on this. The state had one comment related to the future land use map, and that was to add a legend and a planning horizon. The planner will add those items. When those 2 items are complete, it will be ready to go before council.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, we have no public comments, so we'll move on to the public hearing. Adopt ordinance 2018-7, land use map and zoning change, southeast corner of Malmar Road and Marie Street. And I will read my title only. An ordinance of the town of Malmar, Brevard County, Florida, amending land use map and zoning map for the 5.18 plus or minus acres at the southeast corner of Malmar Road and Marie Street in Township 28, Range 38, Section 31, Lot 54B and 54B-1.101, aka 2405 and 2415 Malmar Road, Malmar, Florida. From office, institutional, and rural residential to commercial general CG, providing for amendment to the official town zoning map, providing an effective date. The public hearing is now open. I will call the applicant to please come forward and name and address for the record, and please explain what your project, what you're trying to do. No applicant.
Just for the record, the applicant is not here.
Yeah. For the record, the applicant did not appear. Okay, we're going to move on to town staff. I'll start with the town lawyer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm trying to be brief in this last word. have changed, obviously, because the applicant hasn't appeared. However, I still believe we should go in the public hearing with the input of the residents and the public concerning their pros or cons relating to this proposed zoning, rezoning and map change. I did issue a memo, and I'll try and summarize that. This is what we call a legislative action on the part of the town. It's setting a policy whether or not you want to amend the future land use map to recognize a certain land use designation on the parcel in question with an accompanying rezoning. Under the law, your considerations are based on what's called the fairly debatable standard. You've heard the terms substantial competent evidence and quasi-judicial more often than you probably want to hear, but you rarely hear this fairly debatable standard. What that means is that if reasonable persons could differ on why the council chose to take an act, then the courts will support the council's decision, okay? As opposed to substantial competent evidence, which requires there to be substantial evidence in the record to support what y'all are doing. Now, with that in mind, I'd like to point out that there are some code sections in comp plan references I want to make. First of all, we would refer to Article 12, Section 1-12.5 of the code, which sets out some guidance to the town council for considering the zoning change, and one of those considerations is consistency with the comprehensive plan. Some of the other factors, and there's 9 of them, but I'll only highlight a couple, is land use compatibility, whether and to the extent to which the proposed use would result in any incompatible land uses, considering the type and locations of these uses. Additionally, whether the proposal would result in an orderly and compatible land use pattern. And finally, whether the proposal would be in conflict with the public interest. Now we can go to the comp plan, which is not in the code book, it's a separate document, or loosely, that is online on the town's website. And we have an objective in that comp plan 1-1.2 with a general policy statement in 1-1.2.1, which is general considerations in locating commercial development. And again, I'll highlight a couple of them, and one of the things you should consider when a proposal is or is not consistent with the comp plan is compatibility with and impact on surrounding commercial activities, relationship to surrounding land uses and natural systems. Additionally, there's another policy, 1-2.2.4, and this is a general commercial development policy, in parentheses CG. The general commercial areas, these general commercial areas are designated on the future land use map for purposes of accommodating general retail sales and services. That particular policy sends us back to the zoning policy, which is the zoning code, which when we go back to the zoning code in section 1-3.1L, it tells us that the CG general commercial, again, is designed to accommodate general retail sales and services. Further down in that CG commercial policy, it says the general commercial district is not intended to accommodate manufacturing, processing, or assembly of goods, sales and services of heavy commercial vehicles and equipment, or related services or maintenance activities, warehousing, uses requiring extensive outside storage or other activities or trades which may generate nuisance impacts, including glare, smoke, or other air pollutants, noise, vibration, or major fire hazards. And then finally, again, that particular code section kind of reiterates something that's said prior, but when you're considering a general commercial district or activity, you gotta take into consideration compatibility, relationship to the surrounding land uses, and impact on planned community services and utilities. So, in your deliberation, keep those things in mind that you must consider, in this case, the land use compatibility, because they made it part of the issues here. They have provided a conceptual site plan, which we're not here to vote on, but my understanding, and I'll let the planner expand a little bit on that their proposed use, if this is granted, would not be consistent with the CG zoning category. Okay, so they interjected that issue, and I think you can take that into consideration in your deliberations. And that's all I have to say.
Any questions? Thank you. We'll move on to our town planner, Todd.
Good evening. So I want to kind of just touch base on a couple of things here, and for the record, we just have to get a couple things in place as we walk through this. Obviously, the applicant is not with us tonight. We did have our Planning and Zoning Board meeting, and with that, there was a decision that came out of that, and from that, you had a unanimous recommendation to deny the request that is moving forward. Your attorney has provided you with some information on how you can look at developing your ordinance tonight when you're making your motion. What I wanted to at least make sure we have on the record, obviously, is that we had both William and Christina Slate, who were the applicants. The owner of the property, obviously, is Slate Property Management. These are for 2 parcels. Just as a reminder, there are 3 parcels in total that were a part of the initial purchase, but we're only dealing with 2 as this request is, because those are the only 2 where we're changing the land use, changing the zoning. The 3rd parcel has nothing to do with what is going on with this request for tonight. As was mentioned, we're not talking about the use at all. One of the biggest things that we need to look at is when this land is being purchased, we are dealing strictly with the uses that could go on this piece of property versus the user. The user, they could come along, they may be nice, they may not be nice. They may, have a car that you like, they may have a car that you don't like. We don't really care when it comes to that. What we really care about is this land use change, and is this zoning request something that you believe is following what we call the 3 Cs, as mentioned by your town attorney. So thinking through that request, you have to look at, are all the various uses that are allowed in that commercial general zoning classification, are those the uses that you would feel comfortable with on that site? A site can be purchased today, and tomorrow it can be resold again. Something can happen with someone's health, something can happen with all kinds of things. So we don't care about the owner of the site and what they intend to do. We want to look at all of the uses, because any of those uses could be allowed on that piece of property. That's the important thing for us to recall as we work through this decision tonight. Also with this, as we move forward, when you're thinking about whether it's the size of the building, not the size of the building, we don't care. Because currently, although their request in the future could be a site plan that has a building similar to what they've talked about, we're not there to talk about that tonight. There's no site plan in front of us. This is only land use and dealing with this. So you have those 2 items we're dealing with. There should be a map. If we're able to pull up that map, just want to quickly mention, obviously looking at this for the sake of the audience as well, that you have current land use and zoning changes that are the same. We have the exact same land use, the exact same zoning for this site. And
Present and proposed.
But I think he's talking about the other one.
the little colored map, the beautiful color.
That
No?
No?
Yeah, you can go to that little colored one that has.
All right.
You're going
It's
Keep-
under legal ad.
Can I go back and ask you something? Because
Sure.
I just heard 2 distinctly different arguments.
Sure.
Okay. First, Carl says, since the applicant did propose showed us a building, talked about the vehicles, the size and all that, to say that we don't consider that at all is kind of like, I don't know, you're getting into legalese here that bothers me, okay? You're saying that we don't consider that at all.
So what we want to do is, whenever we have a land use change, and whenever we have a rezoning, and this matter tonight is dealt with, you heard 2 different things that are also talked about. I want to have this, and your town attorney can jump in. There are quasi-judicial matters and there are legislative matters. Tonight we're dealing with the legislative matters, so as a result, the way you proceed with this is a little bit differently. So yes, you have now heard things about the use that are going to play in your mind, and that's going to affect some things when it comes to your decision, which would be different if we were dealing with a quasi-judicial matter. However, from a land use standpoint and from a rezoning standpoint, what they have proposed may never ever happen. And so when you make your decision on a rezoning or on a land use matter, you have to think about the fact that whatever someone's proposed, because it won't happen, don't be in consideration. We've had this happen before, where someone say, I want to put an ice cream stand in, and then later they come back and they give you a Burger King. And you said, well, we didn't expect the Burger King, and we didn't expect to smell all this. Well, it was commercial general. They were retail uses, they were restaurant uses. No, from this standpoint, think about the fact that your commercial general district lists a lot of uses. And one very unique fact that's come along, and you're going to find out that your town engineer and as staff, when we've discussed this matter, we felt as though many of the uses that were allowed in that district are compatible with what we see with what's going on. What hasn't been proven is the applicant's request may realistically not fall at all whatsoever within the commercial general zoning district. And so that's a whole other matter, because what's allowed in your district, if you look at the laundry list of uses, they have to look at whether or not they believe they can fall within that, because warehousing is not allowed within that district. So if they're proposing warehousing, that isn't a use, that's either a permanent or a conditional use for that. So going to this map here, what you have is what we want to look at is what is there today. So today, if you look at the highlighted area, there's a little laser, there it is. I'm going to briefly show this to you. What you have today is we have a total of 3 parcels. Those 3 parcels, make sure we can get this on the record, those 3 parcels are the ones that were purchased. And of those, this number 4, we're going to call it 4, and this says 38. We're going to talk about these 2 are the subject of the application. This 3rd parcel that's owned, it will remain exactly as it's shown today with the OI and the RR, which is a rural residential 65 land use category. That says that 1.5 acre lots are to be provided, and this here is your office institutional zoning designation and land use. So with this, the property is split in half, right down the middle, so 400 feet down, and then you find out you have that change. Currently, the town has a proposal, which was briefly mentioned by your town clerk, that's to change the actual classification, and so it would change from the OI and the RR65, and it's going to become an R/LC, which you'll see is written up here. And so that would allow for a little bit of limited commercial as well as the residential. That's what's being proposed with the change. Neither of those categories as well would accommodate what's being proposed. So the applicant was proposing going to a CG, and what we look at, and what was mentioned by the attorney as well, is consistency, compatibility, capability. So we look at these sites and say, if that were changed to CG, is it consistent? Are the sites capable of handling commercial general? And is there compatibility? And so you look next door, you have CG uses that are all allowed next door. You look across diagonally, you have a CL, which is your commercial limited. You know you have the old historic schoolhouse. You have a park. When you begin to look at some of the uses, there are some of those things that are in place that would begin to reflect the ability to make this type of a decision. What we don't do, and what we talked about briefly, is spot zoning. We can't do spot zoning. You can't just take a piece of land that's right here and you're going to convert that to a commercial general when you don't have any other lots around it that are in that capacity. So for this application, it's pretty basic. You see what the adjacent uses are. You see what's in place around this particular site. You see what's there. The applicant has asked for the change from what is currently today, OI and RR65, to the CG. You'll notice there may have been different, whether you looked at the 2 public hearing notices that went out that were put in the paper. Both were provided with our proof of publication, as well as the property was posted. You may have noticed that they did also reflect the R/LC, and that's because the town had in process this amendment to their comp plan, to the zoning, and so we reflected both of those, because depending upon when this action actually occurred. So your ability to act on this currently today is you're acting on what is existing, which is the OI, and is the RR65, should action take place. It's a pretty simple process in terms of you going through, looking at your motion and how you want to craft it. Town staff, we're here to help guide you in that matter. We just want to make sure that for the record, that you're not just saying we move to either deny or move to adopt this ordinance. We want to make sure that you put on the record some of the things that are discussed in here. Your zoning ordinance provides 10 nice items. And this is just real quickly just mentioning here that your planning and zoning board, when they went through the process, they are your recommending body. They recommended to you that you do not take a positive action on this change. They had 10 considerations, and this is under your zoning ordinance. I'll just briefly mention them. The criteria were consistency with the plan, conforming with your ordinances, changed conditions, looking at the land use compatibility, whether or not there were adequate public facilities, whether or not the natural environment has been considered. By the way, the applicant did provide you with your environmental report. You saw they looked at both the wetlands and other features on site. Talks about economic effects is number 7. Number 8, orderly development, whether the proposal would result in an orderly compatible land use pattern. Number 9 is the public interest. So whether or not the proposal would be in conflict with public interest, and obviously the public's here tonight, they get to provide their comments to this. And then number 10 would be other matters. So that's what all the decisions were to be made on by your planning and zoning board with their recommendation, and that becomes a guide for you as well in your deliberations. Mr. Mayor, any requests or comments? Be glad to provide any assistance at this time.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Move on to Morris. Do you have anything?
No, nothing beyond my memo.
Okay. All right, is there anyone from the public that wishes to speak on this item? There's going to be a couple of criteria. Please state your name and address for the record. Please sign, there is a sheet in the back that Debbie would like you to sign to get your name and address that she'll put in the minutes. There's a 5-minute maximum, and you got 1 time to speak. And please address the council only. So please do not direct any questions to the public. So address the council only.
Mr. Mayor, you should have a sheet with my name on the top.
What?
You should have the sign-in sheet with my name as number 1.
I'm going to ask you to raise your hand. We're going to start in the front row, and that's how we're going to do it. All right? All right, so we know the rules, all right? So 5 minutes, and then we got a counter on the All right, we'll start.
Jeff Darby, 1285 Hall Road. I strongly oppose this ordinance change, zoning change.
Thank you. 7 seconds, thank you.
Good evening. I'm Colleen Nallen. I live at 1285 Hall Road. My husband and I did send you all an email posting this zoning. We have received an additional 9 more signatures on our petition, which I turned in on Friday. So we're up to 349 individuals who have signed that through me. I guess I was going to say quite a few little things, but I guess the attorney said a lot of stuff that I was going to point out also with the zoning and so forth. But I guess one of my questions is why does Pease want to change this to CG if they cannot build on it? My only thought process would be to flip it for more money. Obviously, it's not going to benefit them in any other way. It's definitely not going to help us. We have a lot of residential people who live behind there. I think RLC from the east side of Marie Street down from where our trails are, and then east, it's going to be a wonderful place for eco-tourism to come here and be able to enjoy what we have in this town. I have noticed a lot more people when I'm out walking, out in the trails. They're biking, they're horseback riding. There's just more and more people coming to this town to enjoy this service that we have for them. And I believe, I understand that commercial generals on that side, once again, they'll be restricted as well on what they can build there and what we decide is best for our town when that time comes. I just don't see why we need to change our land use map. Everybody spent a lot of man hours working on that. The plan is in place and it's a good plan. We all agreed it was a good plan. The town didn't come forward to dispute anything that was on that plan. We thought, you guys did a good job, let's stick with it. that's kind of my take on it. I don't think we should make any hasty decisions without thoroughly processing the impact this will have on our town's future. I guess, the future of this town is basically in your hands. I believe you guys will make a good decision. I trust you all. All of us did move here because Malabar insists on remaining rural. That's what we love about this town. Our preamble represents us best. We must keep our town rural and respect the needs of this community by denying this rezoning for our future. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. My name is Drew Thompson. I've been at the podium in the past a few times, but I also have the privilege of being your chair of your town greenways and trails. And we put a lot of effort into that with the blessing of the town as we understood it. We've come before you in the past. The plaque before me on the floor is recent representation of the efforts of many, many people of this town with regard to where we thought the future should go, what we believe was pretty much a consistent, undisputed approach that the town would be taking into the future. And anybody that looks at a map of this area and looks to the north, looks at the megalopolis, if you will allow me that word, basically sees we are kind of holding the line. The town of Malabar is unusual. The major population basically abruptly stops with Malabar. And that is huge to the South Brevard infrastructure. We are the town that has become the other Brevard town. There's only one county in the state of Florida, 67 counties, that has two towns that are considered trail towns. There's one in the north in Titusville, and it was September 14th that Murray Hahn and myself we were up there basically arguing that the town of Malabar was going to hold fast and maintain rural residential. And we challenged the committee at the state level to allow us to become a trail town based on our trails, not our paved sidewalks and our cafes and our how many cash registers are hooked to the trail, but really on a natural trail, natural setting, a place you could go out and relax. And we look at it as a quest that this town is on a pivotal thing. We could really, and it's property values too, but it's the idea that if we can preserve our rural residential concept that is in the preamble as mentioned, is basically this is the town that we saw in the future when we all bought our properties. What you all are considering should preserve what your majority of constituents really are looking for. And you may hear some other folks talk on this tonight too. But basically, the bottom line is that if this particular code change goes in, and as it was identified very clearly, it is not a representation of what its final use may be, because it can change overnight, as clearly said. And as our attorney said, this is something that is really, we need to look at it as many, many facets of what make up the town, what the town wants to be, what the town was, where the town is going, people that elected you to represent them. Where do we want tomorrow to be as a town? And I see it as being the original codes that are still up there on the wall, as being kind of mom and pop downtown. We essentially told the state of Florida, we have a downtown, you may not have a lot of ease finding it, but that is what we want to develop into the mom and pop type places. Everybody wants to go out to the hike, have a burger, have a Coke, an ice cream, go to a shop, go to an outfitter place, that type of thing. So again, bottom line, this is a real important thing. We appreciate the town needing the dollars for the infrastructure. We're grossly underfunded. Those are other issues. This is not the thing that would save us entirely. It would help, I'm sure, but again, as has been identified, what is approved tonight may very much change within minutes after that approval being finalized. So I implore you to consider the folks that elected you to your positions. I implore you to consider the past of Malabar, where it's going, and where it could be in the future. There's very few towns like ours so close to a major population. We truly need to consider that in this decision. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Karen Moser, 1775 Axe Road. I just wanted to express my agreement with Drew and the others. To me, the vision of Malabar is the more rural concept. That is what we moved here for, and the planning has reflected that and all of the trouble that the Trails and Greenways Committee went to get us designated as a trail town, and the plan to change it to residential limited commercial in that area, which is perfectly consistent. What we would like to see are small businesses, and I think we should develop toward that end, that small businesses that would support the people coming here to hike the trails. And we do need to make sure that we accommodate the environment, the wildlife that people come here to see, and not to overdevelop to the point where we make our drainage problem worse, because in talking to people around town, that is one of the very, very high on the list of things people complain about. So we need to take a look at the land, the infrastructure behind it, and keep in mind the vision of what we want for our town. And I think that the change to CG for those parcels would be completely incompatible with that. It's just headed off in the wrong direction after we were from where we all thought we were going. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
Front row.
My name is Holly Yolis. I live at 2365 Quarry Road. I'd like to say that Marie Hahn and the Trails Committee have a slide that I know they presented all of last year, where I was on horseback and so was my neighbor Donna, because Marie took our picture right here at Murray Street. On many occasions we've ridden down Murray Street and prayed for a break in the traffic and cross and run over to the trails over there. It epitomizes one of the reasons that we moved here and why we still live here, is the ability to get on our horse and ride to a nearby trail and enjoy the wildlife. I would like to note that while you're not supposed to take into consideration what owners may do with that land, as far as revenue is concerned, I understand that the Slades currently have some properties that are zoned commercial that they have schools on, and schools don't pay a lot of revenue. Those are my only comments. I hope we don't give up our trails for our unsure what kind of building's going to go there, commercial general.
Anyone else on this? Thank you.
Glenn Williams, 1946 Palm Drive. I like trees. That's why I moved here, because I like trees. If you look at this border right there on Marie Street, everything west is commercial. You wanted something consistent. If you bring it on the other side, that wipes out all your consistency. You go from residential, office, and all that to commercial. If you use Marie Street as a border, you keep it all in check. But again, I moved down to Malabar mainly because I like trees. Where I came from, there's no trees. There's trees here. Thank you.
Second row.
I'm Richard Kovacs, I live at 1680 Hall Road, I've been living in Malabar for 12 years. This proposed plan for zoning change flies in the face of our town code, our preamble, and a large-scale amendment to the comp plan. Further, it cannot be passed based on the petition to build Tees Electric there, because number one, it's a trade and skilled service, and under the land development code, those particular trades and skilled services are only allowed on sites that abut Babcock Street, US 1, and Railroad Avenue. Number two, warehouse, storage, and distribution activities are permitted only in zone IND, and you guys all have this, this stuff on it, and it's not that. Okay. Now, I presume that with the unanimous recommendation of planning and zoning, 5-0, there was a message sent, and I hope you take that to heart. This proposal is not consistent with our comp plan. It doesn't conform with our ordinances 2018-01 and 2018-06, and it's incompatible with the land use for CG. I'd also like to remind you that if you should choose to ignore the unanimous ruling of the Planning and Zoning Advisory Board, that you will be reneging on your elected commitment to be aware of the voice of the people.
Anyone else in the second row? All right.
My name is Dorothea White, 1770 Gaps Road, and I just want to say that I love our little town as it is, and I think that the planning and zoning has done lots to get this, and I think that we should stay at it. And I think that Drew's done an excellent job with our trails, and everywhere I go, everybody's always saying that they're so proud that we're a trails town now. You know, and that's making us look good in people's eyes. And I think if we start putting big commercial buildings or big commercial lots or whatever where our residents and our trails are, I think we're creating not a pretty sight. And thank you very much.
All right, third row. Come forward.
Something else? Scott Logan, 700 Hall Road.
My family and I have been in Malabar now for the better part of 10 years. A few years back, we lost a family member on Malabar Road. My wife was waiting with her left-hand turn signal to turn down Weber, and a business owner from Melbourne, I believe, didn't see her, just drove right through her. Hit the truck. My wife, my son, my sister, and my future brother-in-law was in that vehicle. We lost my future brother-in-law. He was doing 65, the driver that hit her, was too busy doing his business on his cell phone to know that he was in a rural area where people don't drive without paying attention, I hope, right? We talk about, I hear everybody talking, and I moved here for the same reason, for just to get out of Palm Bay and all that chaos in Melbourne. It's got its place there, I'm sure they'd be fine, but it doesn't mean I want to live there. I enjoy the rural area. I got enough acreage between me and my neighbors where we're all good friends. We got good fences. They do what they do, but in Palm Bay they couldn't have it. Everything was too tight, and you know, you could hear businesses at night. There's a lot of traffic, and just all that chaos. So that's the passion I bring here. It's just the lifestyle, and the danger, the fear of losing that lifestyle. And where do you go? Keep headed south. I mean, living in Malabar, we're kind of like on the Russian front here. We got everything all around us, and there's a lot of pressure. And you hear the biggest pressure is money. Right? We don't have enough money. We need more money. We need bigger businesses to bring money in. And I think we all know that looking at our neighbors, that probably doesn't work, right? Because they create more of a problem than they solve. And as my grandma used to say, it's not what you make, it's what you spend. So I'll leave that alone. Listening to the planner, smart guy, appreciate that. And looking at the picture here, what we don't see is the slippery slope. The one that allows this to change into that to change into this, and then 10 years later, we all wonder what happened to Malabar, one bit at a time. And I believe the council's got the power to stop that. And certainly as a resident and passionate resident, we appreciate the work and hope to be behind. Thank you. And next, the
Hi, my name is Barbara Cameron, and I live at 665 Hall Road. And I just want you to know that being a rural residential area is the most important thing to me. Last month, I was actually thinking of selling my property and getting to a simpler life. And then when I looked at all my options, when I looked at what I would have to trade, I just called my realtor and I said, I will die in Malabar before I'll sell. So I think that we all need to think about that, you know, what do you want to die in? Do you want to die in a commercial area because there's more money? And, you know, I know a lot of people are sitting there complaining about the good old boy syndrome. You know what? I like good old boys. Good old boys have the right value in life. And, you know, I think that the town has the right value. And we're going to stay good old boys as long as we can. So thank you for your time, and please consider that no commercial.
anyone else in row 3?
Hi, I'm Mike Kiefer. I live at 1957 Positano. I'm my Glenn's neighbor. I'm just so fortunate and thankful to move to Malabar from cold weather that I don't miss and get settled in nicely. And I even elected to keep a lot of the preserve there and not put lawns and things that go deeper in it. I kept it really as preserved as possible. In order to do that, one of the deals with my wife was to make sure no animals come in as best as possible, so we did that. But it's just beautiful and a lot of great neighbors. I love seeing all the people that ride horses through the trails. I'm not a horse rider, but I really do love the nature and the look of how much fun they have. So appreciate it and thank you for your time.
Anyone else, row 3? Okay, move on to row 4. Okay, anyone outside? Anybody outside that wants to come in and speak?
row 5?
Yes.
Row 5, sorry, my bad. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Vicki Easterling, 1400 Blanche Street. I was 30 years ago, I was a Palm Bay commuter that just came through Malabar because I worked in Sebastian. And I would drive through Malabar, and I don't know, all I thought about Malabar was what I saw on Malabar Road, because that's kind of the presence we give to the people that pass through. I know Malabar is much larger than that. I didn't really think a lot of Malabar at the time. Anyone who's been here a long time will think that there was many old buildings on Malabar Road that were boarded up. There were pepper trees that lined US 1. I remember driving and sitting at the light thinking, wouldn't it be nice to see the river when you're sitting at US 1 in Malabar? But it was all pepper trees. You couldn't see the river. And so now we have it all cleared out. 26 years ago, we decided to purchase a property on Blanche Street for 2 reasons. And one is that we wanted to get out of Palm Bay traffic. And the other was we got a great deal on a cheap house, and I wanted to stay home with my kids. So we took a gamble on Malabar, but there were things that concerned us, like drainage. Our street didn't drain well, the boarded up houses. Our favorite was the very creative family on Malabar that turned their satellite dish into a pool and kept it on the front yard. My husband would envy them and go, he lives such a simple life with his cold one, his kids, and his pig in the satellite dish. And he would wave at traffic as we went by. We were a little nervous, and for our neighborhood, which is not necessarily rural because we're the old residential section of Malabar, every house since we've moved in has been improved. I mean, a lot of times you look at old residential neighborhoods and the 2-bedroom, 1-bath homes, no open floor plan, those houses a lot of times become rental. And so we took a gamble that this neighborhood was going to improve. And we said if it goes all rental, it's going to be bad. But, we were very blessed that the town actually fixed our drainage around the year 2000, and Blanche and Florence Street actually drains. We're probably the best drainage in Malabar. And so many other things of great have happened. The schoolhouse, which when we bought the property, had peeling paint. It was an interesting old building, but Jim Noble fixed it up, and now it's owned by Banyan Estates. It's a beautiful place. The Palm House at the end of my street, Doug keeps it up beautifully. The storage building by the train tracks, we support it. My husband has all his collection over there. So I feel like the town, and with some of those buildings having been torn down, I think the downtown part of Malabar, has not looked better in 30 years. So I would just like to say thank you for, it's moving in the right direction. And let's, a lot of people walk Marie. I walk Marie Street. That's my walking path when I'm not walking the trails. There's a lot of horses, a lot of bikes, and so having a big business right there, I just do not think it suits the town at all. So I would just like to say, this is how people end up with boats and timeshares. If something came along as a great deal, you weren't planning on it, but it suddenly came along, and then you go, oh, I was going to get debt free, or I was going to do this, and you realize. And so with this property, I know they seem like a great family business and could provide revenue for the town, and I support that. I just don't, I would just like to say stick to the plan, and if they want to go someplace else, that would be more appropriate. Thank you.
Row 5.
Good evening, Jose Marino, 1720 San Diego Road, Astoria opposes. Thank you.
Anyone else on row 5?
Hi, my name is Pat Pickernell. I reside at 1500 Delaware Avenue, and I, like everyone else here, chose Malabar as my residence because of the lifestyle that we had chosen. So most businesses run successfully because they have repeatable processes and procedures. And part of the process that we've had in the rezoning and everything has brought all these people here. So I'm glad to see that it's working. One of the other procedures that the town of Malabar has incorporated was a P&Z zoning board. The other night they listened to quite a few people, and they came to the conclusion that the zoning request did not fit the planning that they had spent so much time and energy on before. I sincerely hope that you listen to your P&C board and vote no on the zoning changes. But let's say that you don't. Let's say that you are considering changing to a more commercial zoning here. So my question to you would be why? What is the benefit? What's the benefit to the townspeople? What is the benefit to the town? It could be money, it could not be money. If you open this door, where are you going to let it stop? Because now you have opened up a can of worms. So they have 3 lots that were purchased. They're only requesting 2. What about the 3rd one? When will that one come into play? How about lot number 2? Just to the south. It's 4.5 acres. That lot has been on the market for 543 days. It recently, on November 20th, got a contingent contract on it. By who? I have no idea. Contingent on what? No idea. But I think you need to take into consideration the aspect that will happen. And also, too, on the planner, don't take into consideration that there's a 14,000 square foot building, 100 employees, and 36 vehicles. It could be much worse. I listened to that gal. She is a shrewd businesswoman. She bragged, appropriately so, that their business had expanded over the last few years, and they've tripled their employees. Most business people I know don't say, geez,
I'm successful enough. They're gonna keep going. So at what cost will we in Malabar pay? I hope you do not consider rezoning.
All right.
Hello, my name is Evelyn Maddox, and
You can raise it.
my name is Evelyn Maddox. I currently reside at 233 Harvey Avenue Northeast in Palm Bay, Florida. To dispel some of the mystery, I am the contingent contract at 1675 Marie Street, Malabar. I've lived in Palm Bay since 2005, and I'm looking for some more space. And I'm planning on building my home at the said address. And I'm with the community in building up my home in this rural community, a very passionate community, and I hope that it stays that way. Thank you for listening.
All right, anyone outside? I saw Larry. Okay.
I'm presenting some historical maps of Malabar, shows the residences that were here in the pioneer days, and trails that were here from the 1800s to the 1900s. To kind of support that Malabar's been a little trail town for a long time. I'm sure you know my point of opinion as far as this rezoning. I think it's a big mistake. I think unintended consequences are astronomical. The commercial general district that you have to the west of it was put in 1986 when we did our first comp plan. And at that time, DOT was going to run a 4-lane road and bridge over the railroad track, not another crossing, but a bridge over the track and a bridge over the river to the beach side. And when we were faced with that, we said that triangle would be a nice little downtown area of commercial general. We'd probably get some shops and stores. And we'd be able to access the historic downtown area in a small village type atmosphere. Nothing ever happened. They went away, and we still don't know where it's going to go. I hope that you don't take into consideration the abutment of CG to this particular district. I was on planning and zoning for 20 years, and through that period of time, we did the grants for the trail, the trailhead, all the work for the state. And I just think that with everything that's in place and now our certification as a trail town, everything is falling into place. It takes a long time to assemble these things and get these things going. And I can see it happening now in my time. I wasn't sure that it would, but I think it will. And if we keep this district that's projected for RLC, we'll have an opportunity to allow existing residents to live in their home, own a business, take a vacant piece of land. They can either do a combination of commercial or residential. I'd love to see a bicycle hostel type thing, bed and breakfasts, possibly a trail outfitter, bike shops, runner shops, that type of thing that would be trail orientated. But I just think that unintended consequences, when we do our prayer, we go into every meeting and pray for wisdom and guidance. And I think we need to add insight and discernment to that list of things that we pray for. But anyway, that's my take on it, and you got it.
Okay, Larry. Thanks for waiting.
35 Marie Street. I've sent each one of you guys multiple emails expressing my concern about this. And obviously, since I live right across the street from this, whatever you build there, or whatever they build there, that's what I'm gonna see when I look south, so. Yeah, it's a little personal, but the bigger thing I'm worried about is the precedence, the changing and allowing commercial to get their foot in the door. Like you say, you can't build that commercial in the middle of nowhere, it's gotta be applied to other commercial, and then once you step it across Marie Street, you let them all in. And, you know, it can't go good from there. Like I say, I've already said all my official stuff, it's on the record, said it to you before. Thank you.
Anyone else outside? Okay, thank you.
Don Danielson Hall Road. I think Mayor Riley, you might have called for a vote at the planning and zoning meeting. There was a vote from the audience, how many were for this plan? Somebody did. How many were for this plan and how many were against?
It was a strong vote.
It was a strong vote. And I believe there was 3 or 4 for it, and that consisted of William and Christina Slate and Paul, somebody that sold them the property, and one other person. And the entire rest of the residents were against it. And I would like to suggest that you ask for a straw poll tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the outside? Okay, thank you. All right. Public hearing is now closed. I'll entertain a motion for the approval of ordinance 2018-07, and please state the reasoning why.
Yeah, I would actually like to move that we do not approve the rezoning request. I got several reasons why. I think most of the things that the speakers have identified, things that were brought up by our attorney, you know, the compatibility with the surroundings. You know, there's people that, you know, that's essentially a residential area. I believe RLC, which is what we've put in our future land use plan, is compatible with that residential area, and I think CG would not be. P&Z did unanimously recommend that we not approve the change to zoning, and again, they've studied this in depth. I see no reason to disagree with that. And then just, again, my personal opinion, I think I moved to Malabar for the same reason everybody else in this room that moved to Malabar. I like to be out in the woods. I like to commune with nature. I like seeing wildlife in my yard.
Just stick to the.
Okay, I'm sorry. So, again, personal preferences, I want to maintain.
He made a motion, I'll second. Any further discussion? What I'm going to say is, we'll fix the wording of the motion, amend the motion, you know, for official.
Okay, you would ask for the reason.
Right. Well, the reasoning was, so that we have to have a reason why. When you deny, when you disapprove something, you have to have reasons why. So we're going to have the reasons why at the end of the discussion.
Okay.
So we'll amend the motion to incorporate the reasons why.
Okay.
During the discussion, so.
I have a question for the attorney.
Okay.
In the letter, the memo that we received, under 1-2.2.4, second paragraph, the area designated for general commercial development is specifically not adapted to permanent residential housing. Do I read that correctly when I say that if it is an area that is compatible with residential housing, then it ought not to be commercial general?
Well,
Is that your intent in that statement?
well, that's exactly how the policy reads. Put a different way, commercial general is not consistent with an area which is designated for residential.
Reading it that way is why I seconded the motion, but I did move here for the reasons you did. I met a lady who lived here. I moved here to get married.
Also moved here for a while.
I was gonna say that the biggest reason that I have here is that it's, I'm seeing it, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's inconsistent with our future land use. We've gone to a lot of work, planning and zoning's gone to a lot of work, over 7 years, I believe now, to come up with a future land use. We've just come up with a future land use, and now all of a sudden we get something that's not compatible with that future land use. So that's my big concern with the way we're doing this.
And I concur with Grant. P&Z worked long and hard on that plan, and we haven't even concluded and finished that plan on an official basis, and we don't need to be changing it now. I think we stick to the plan, consistency with the plan as our guidance leads us, in compatibility, and the people have obviously spoken. Just like these guys, I came to Malabar, I've been in Malabar since '78 as a kid, and been here since 2000 as a landowner, and I very much want to stay the same.
I would like, just consider the planner's 3 Cs and the 10 checklist things during the motion.
Yeah, first off, Brian uses a satellite dish for a water fountain. My wife and I came here a few years ago, not very many, only 3, and not even 3 yet. About 2 weeks will be 3 years ago that we came here to start looking for a place to buy. And the realtor wanted us to go to Titusville and take a look at a piece of property. And it was a nice property, but we had to drive by a huge industrial warehouse structure to get there. That was, by all appearances, abandoned, right, Dorothea? And that's, even the good places eventually fall into disrepair, and then you're stuck with them, just like the old Walmarts you see all over the country. And we said, no, I can't be driving by this every day. Even though I'm retired and don't drive every day. But anyway, so we love this place. And it was like I was telling Grant, I spent the afternoon on the tractor today, and Grant agrees, any day on the tractor is a good day, And the thing that got me the most was when you look at this, sure, the property across the street is commercial general, but it is bounded by roads. And there is no, it doesn't have a residential property that it's encroaching on. This would be a whole different animal here, And this town is so unique. Every time I have a relative or a friend come visit, I have to go show them the zebra. I don't know. They have a zebra, and I even know the name of the zebra. It's Ribbon. All right. And everybody knows Ribbon. And I'm taking my great grandkids home one night, and it's almost dusk, and we're going down Marie, and there's a lady walking a large dog. But when I get there, it's not a dog, it's a little horse, She lives right around the corner. And that is what this town is, So we can come up with all the logical reasons about our future plan use and how this doesn't meet it and all that stuff. So basically, I think if you look at the preamble of our charter, it just goes against what this town proposes to be. The trail town was a big thing. My wife and I painted those signs for the Marie Street Trailhead, and we try to do things like that. One of the things that, I'm rambling a little bit, but one of the things that Grant brought up the other day is we need more volunteers, All of y'all came here, and Wednesday night was awesome. We didn't need another show of hands, Don, even though I know it was overwhelming, And unfortunately, most of the town hall meetings we have, I see about 5 or 6 regulars that show up. So I ask you to make it a little bit more regular part of your life, you know? Because despite the limitations we have financially, we can't meet everybody's expectations sometimes, or all the time, really. But we're doing the best we can with what we have to work with, and still keep this town what everybody wants it to be.
I agree with Danny on that. Y'all's input is essential to us making intelligent decisions based on what the community wants. Without the community's input on these topics, and that's every meeting, not just this one, not a rezoning. This is every meeting. We need the town's input, and it's very rare that we actually get it. You know, I'm either one of those 5 people sitting out there, or I'm up here, and I have been forever. And it's just, unfortunately, it's complacency. I understand people's lives are busy. Life consumes you sometimes, but please pay a little bit more attention to what's going on in the town. Help us make good decisions based on your wants. And back to Pat's earlier guidance as far as the reasons that we're turning this down, you know, 5 of them come to mind, which is, number 1 is consistency with the plan, confirmation, conformance to ordinance, land use compatibility, if it's not compatible, and number 9, public interest. And that would be the 4 that jump out right away. There's other arguments, but Pat asked for official input on that. That's why I'm throwing that out there. Thanks, everybody.
And the public interest in this is just absolutely overwhelming. And that's one of the things that we touched on here. And I just need to even drive it home further. You know, we go through council meetings with 4 people out there, month after month after month. And only when something's happening in somebody's backyard or something like this happens do we get a show of people here. It would be so nice to know that we had the support of people on almost every meeting, that we get, you know, 15, 20 people instead of just a few. And then what he's saying is, you sit here, you're elected to this office, and we're here to serve the people, but if nobody tells you anything about the stuff that's coming up on the agenda, the only thing we can do is make our best field guess, because we haven't had any input from anybody else. And something like this tonight is what the town should be on almost every meeting.
Further discussion? All right, what we'll do is we'll clarify your motion. So Debbie, so far.
Are we doing this with 1 motion or 2?
1.
Okay.
It's the ordinance, we're voting on the ordinance.
Councilmember Rivet made the motion, it was seconded by Councilmember Corn to deny ordinance 2018-07 to change the land use and zoning request from OI and RR to CG for parcels 2405 and 2415 Malabar Road for the reasons that it does not meet the compatibility, consistency, public interest, comp plan,
And the comp plan.
The comp plan
and the 10 points in the
and is
land
inconsistent with the recommendation.
And it's inconsistent with the recommendations of PNC. Okay.
Is that a good?
I would ask that it be a little bit more specific, and let me interject this, that grounds for denial of ordinance 2018-07 include, but are not limited to, the applicant's failure to meet the requirements of section 1-12.5C of the Code of Ordinances of the town, including but not limited to consistency with consistency with the comp plan. Those comp plan matters would include 1-1 1-2.1, under the policy section, 1-1.2.2 policy, 1-2.2.4 policy, and section 1-3.1L of the Code of Ordinances of the town.
I will agree with the
Can you repeat that?
Cody could not limit it.
Correct.
All right.
Okay.
It's okay on the second? Okay. Any further discussion?
Now, just for clarification, I vote is saying no.
It's to deny. It's a denial.
Is it denied?
Correct, that's right.
Okay. Debbie, please do a roll call.
Councilmember Ball.
Aye.
Councilmember Vale.
Aye.
Councilmember Rivet.
Aye.
Councilmember Corn.
Aye.
Councilmember White.
Aye.
Motion carried 5-0.
Okay, the public hearing is now open. So we'll move on to adopt ordinance 2018-08, budget amendment, fiscal year 2017, 2018.
This is also a public hearing.
So we'll open it up to the public.
You want me to read by title?
Oh, I'm sorry, I knew that.
An ordinance of the town of Malabar, Brevard County, Florida, pertaining to a budget amendment in the fiscal year 2017-2018, provide for additional revenues received, provide for unspent funds remaining in certain departments, provide for allocation of those funds to the departments over budget due to expenditures approved by council, provide for conflicts, and provide for an effective date.
You're gonna, okay.
Just take your time. That's okay.
Essentially, this is kind of wrapping up your discussion on it.
This is the second reading.
We weren't able to get it in the legal advertising as required to get our 10-day before the public hearing, because that would have had to run on Thanksgiving Day, and ordinance today wasn't taking any legal action. So it essentially recognizes the additional revenues we received and allocates the unspent dollars, revenues in the building department to a restricted fund, and the unspent stormwater monies into a restricted fund. Still sets aside money for the vehicle replacement that was in the budget, and puts the difference, 46,000, into reserve. So it's another good year.
All right, I'll entertain a motion for the approval of ordinance 2018-0.
I'll make that motion.
I'll say,
Any further discussion?
I'd say kudos for staff, it looks like we put $100,000 back into the.
We'll do a roll call vote.
Councilmember Ball.
Aye.
Councilmember Vale.
Aye.
Councilmember Rivet.
Aye.
Councilmember Corn.
Aye.
Councilmember White.
Aye.
Motion carried 5-0.
Thank you. All right, you're excused. Thank you.
Was that about changing?
Okay, we have no discussion, we have no speaker cards, so we'll move on to reports. We'll start with Ryan.
How are you?
I really don't have anything to see.
Steve?
Yeah, I'd just like to kind of, reiterate, I was starting to say earlier, apparently. I built my house here in Malabar 30 years ago. I've seen the town change very slowly. The changes, I think, have been almost all positive. It's a little bit nicer place to live than it was when I first moved here. Those boarded up buildings are gone. We've got some paved roads. We've got even some dirt roads that are in better shape than they were 30 years ago. So the one thing that has not changed is the character of the town. We're still a rural residential town. And again, that's why I moved here, and I'll do everything in my power to keep that.
That's the reason I sit up here as well.
Grant?
Well, I'd like to say, we had a workshop with Public Works,
You want it?
and it's something that
Young
I had
man.
been
Young
pushing
man.
for a long time. We finally had it, and I think it was wildly successful. And I look forward to having more of those, and I look forward to, having some plans around those meetings so we can all have input into what's happening. And one of the reasons I brought this up is to be more transparent to the people. So if somebody wants to know what's happening in Public Works, hopefully in the future we will have a plan of where we're going, and it'll be set out, the start dates, end dates, and we'll be able to bring that to the public when somebody asks me, hey, what are they doing on? I'll be able to know it before we haven't really had a good feeling for that. I think Matt is working really hard towards that goal.
We know each other, aren't we?
I was just going to say, my response to Councilman Riven a while ago, I'm thinking next week is my 31st anniversary of being here. It was 31 years ago next week that I came, for my reasons. The town has not changed a lot in that time. Rick mentioned, I don't remember the boarded up buildings, but I do remember the community feeling, the community atmosphere that was here. And the youth programs, the things that happen to make this a community. We need to continue to concentrate on that. Let's be a community. Let's do some things together as a whole. Now, the Spring Fest, at that time we had a Spring Fest and a fall. That was out of our days. Just times when we could all be together. And I'd like to see that continue or redevelop.
All right, I would like to thank town staff for the Christmas tree planning and the Christmas tree gathering that we had on Friday. And I would like to thank town staff, we all that, summer so here, for preparing for tonight's public hearing. This was a very, very major undertaking for planning and zoning and council. And our packet is probably 80 pages and 100 pages, and a lot of them is the petition we all signed, so we had tons of pages for that. So I would also like to thank the public for doing that. So without, what's the word? I forgot. Without objection.
I had to get that up before somebody turned.
Thanks, everybody.